Hey everyone, my name is Kabi, and today we are going to watch the game between the two dark players. There is, in the bottom right corner, appears the player whose nickname is Krach, that is somewhat in between the Roman and Cyrillic name, means something like a collapse or maybe a crash, something in between, I guess. And in the top left corner appears Novartis. That would be something in Latin, I guess. I didn't check the exact translation, but I believe it's something recognizable, at least by the general meaning. And both players also play the dark faction, as well as the sea. And recently we buffed the dark faction quite a bit. So many players who have been played the buff faction before now try to prioritize this exact one, or maybe they were maining mostly the light when the light was stronger, so now they can switch to play a bit of dark to pump up this faction a little bit too, because you obviously wanna you actually wanna have your buff faction higher than the novice league, because when you receive the magic chest scrolls, such as in the arena mode or in the battle pass or wherever you might get them from, what they consist of, what they contain, it actually depends on the league of your lower faction. So if you only play the dark faction and your light so will be in the novice one, then every time you get a magic chest, you will have the magic chest of the novice league, and that means that they can't have the epic scrolls, for example. So you will only get the epic scrolls from the fixed chests. When you get to the next league, you get a lot of stuff, and that stuff is predetermined. So it is predetermined, so you might have the gloom scrolls, you might have some other cool scrolls too, such as Ring of Fire, but later, when you will get more chests, you won't be getting more of those. This is why you actually want to level up your lower faction too. We actually think about maybe cancelling the system, because it seems a bit too strict to make the players to level up the two factions, but that would mean that we will have to add the dark magic scroll chest and the light magic scroll chest. And that obviously also means that we will have the dark arena scale and the light arena scale separately. So if you wanna play buff, you will probably have to also complete the arena twice a day. So there are pros and cons, obviously, but we are leaning towards that decision currently. But it is not in the game right now, so right now, as I record it, and if you will be watching it with a mark like a few days ago, then probably it is still not in the game, so you still want to have the other faction to be at least record. But in the meantime, we can see how Novartis goes the 2 racks. It seems that I forgot to switch to the English interface. Not the biggest issue though, but I will just not use too many hints. But we also have the Russian voicing, but I believe we can bear that this time around, and the next time I'll try not to forget this. So you can hear a bit of the Russian voicing in the background. And what I meant is that Novartis goes the 2 barracks goblin tag, and what you would obviously immediately think that the guy is gonna play alchemist goons, but instead actually it seems that he's about to play the bombers along with the chieftain probably. Actually, and I say that he's gonna play alchemist, but I can't know if he even has that hero. I personally opened the alchemist being the recruit one, and those players are slightly higher, but what I also know is that Novartis is a light main player, and he told me that all of his units and buildings are of the first level, because he don't spend any resources to level up the other faction, this faction, the dark one. And we can see how his food supply is only 60, while his opponent has 64. That means that Krach has the farm of the 4th level and Novartis has the farm of the 1st level. So it is probably true that he didn't level up anything. So that means that he is in a kind of a disadvantage. So he has the stock account and the Krach has the normal Recruit League account. So many players would think that it is nearly impossible to win being this far behind, but we're gonna see if it is the case and how strongly it is gonna even impact on the game. Currently, Novartis is gonna try to focus down the main building, but actually since the previous, not the latest, but even the previous balance patch, you don't want to focus the main building anymore, because we buffed the durability of the main building quite a bit, so now it requires a tremendous amount of damage to be taken down. So you rather want to opt for the production building or the racial building, but definitely not the main building anymore. Even the units might be the better target. See how those bombers take down the 2 wolves, and the bombers are actually cheaper, but that's not the greatest deal, but still something. And in the meantime, Novartis also got the bottom chest. I'm not sure about the top chest currently, but it seems that he somehow won the engagement between the units, so probably his goon is not weaker than the opponent, so that might mean that at least his goon is not of the level 1 against the level 4. Because I can hardly believe that the normal player like Krach would let the goon on the lowest level, because the goon is the tier 1 common unit, so leveling him up would be very cheap. So why wouldn't you do that? Actually, what a little inside information that I can share with you guys is that those basic units, the goon and the swordsman, are very strong in terms of the battle statistics, comparing to their cost. So if you compare the sheer stats of the goon and the swordsman to any other unit in the game, they would be more cost efficient. Obviously they have their cons, being vulnerable to many stuff like magic damage, the heroes actives and stuff like that. But if you just consider the sheer stats, those units are great. So when you start the game, you really wanna start with a bit of those, because with any kind of the tier 1 or even the early tier 2 aggression, you will be fine with your basic units. So consider always leveling up your basic units because of that. So that is something that game designer told me, so I'm telling you now. It is also cool to kind of realize how this kind of math is supposed to work. Of course, when those numbers also meet those numbers expectation meet the real stuff in the games, but I noticed that it kind of meet them. So we can see Novartis having the 3rd citadel and also taking up to the 2 workshops. So it seems that he's gonna be hero-less, so he doesn't play any hero. His hero tab is empty, even though he already has the 2 racial buildings, and obviously Chieftain Grok is available to any player in the game since the moment when you finish the tutorial, what we call that, the tutorial chapter. But anyway, we can see Krach being a bit pulled back to his own base, probably being afraid of more bombers. So bombers have this kind of psychological treatment because the opponent is treated, he's afraid to leave the base, so he sits back, and that means that the blue player here is free to take any chest, and obviously the 2 chests being acquired so far. I don't like too much that none of the players actually captured the mana wells, because on this map the mana wells really belong to the nearby players, but none of them got it so far. And Novartis, it seems he's gonna check the well first and then see if he can apply a bit more pressure, but I'll tell you that he can't. He's gonna lose this fight, because it is not really the complete wall-in, but he can't really fight this army with the aeronauts because of this thing, the slingshot tower. But yeah, that is what I expected. Obviously the Warg Riders rather went down rather fast under this amount of units. At the same time, actually aeronauts do quite a good job, and Krach didn't have any anti-air, so he's got I mean, he has the 2 under obelisk, right? And 2 altars of heroes. I'm starting to feel that the guy is a bit clueless. Actually, sometimes you may want to build a 2nd altar of heroes if you play the 2 heroes, so you will be able to resummon them both at once. And that is the nice stuff that such strong players like Domino and Altair used to use back in the tournament days, when we had the tournaments during the testing. Now we don't hold any tournaments yet, because all the accounts are very far from each other. Many players didn't even open enough units to participate. Probably we're gonna try something out later. But anyways, Krach does something that makes sense to me, because he will obviously take down those aeronauts eventually, because aeronauts are not great at dealing damage. If I told that goons and swordsmen are overpowered for the cost and aeronauts are really underpowered for the cost, they are very weak for the cost, but at the same time they are very great at positioning, so they are all about the positioning. They can't fight the straight fight against anything that shoots air, but at the same time, if the player have the magic scrolls, then these come into play, and that might be a changer, because obviously if you put a ring of fire on the skeleton archers, it immediately starts to be the different fight. But the problem is that Novartis, as I mentioned before, he didn't take the mana well, so he's really short on mana, and in like 15 seconds he will be able to use sharp turns. I'm not even sure if it's worth it, probably it's better to use a higher acceleration. But anyway, this red army really applied quite a bit of pressure, and Novartis in the end had to pull the aeronauts back. I believe that he built these aeronauts actually, because those aeronauts were taken down with the skeleton archers and the slingshot. And Chieftain Grok still not figured out. The blue player still has to do something to it, and at the same time the first elemental is gonna appear anytime now. This game was played a few days ago, when we still didn't have that feature to show where the elemental will pop up, I believe. Or no, probably I just don't see it being an observer. The moment we added this thing with randomizing the position, I believe it was already shown on the map, but probably it is just not visible for observer. So we're gonna fix it later. It's just something that probably nobody thought about. We don't have too many streamers yet. And by the way, if you stream the game or record the videos, you may contact me. It is easiest way to find me on our official Discord server. And to make it there, in the video description, there is one link, just one link to our website. And on our website, you can find anything you might need. There is all the installation links, all the social links, all the screenshots, so everything related that you may need when you want to share the game with your friends or wherever. If you go to the Google Play and you type War Legends and you can't find anything because the game is not open in your country yet, just press on that link in the description and you will make it to our website, and there you can install APK file and have all the links to make sure to tap on that Google Play link to double check if it's available to you or not yet. But we are gonna open the game to much more countries very soon. So we are about to add the Europe, we are about to add the Americas, so we are gonna have a lot more countries soon. The game is already open to many African countries. So we're gonna have more players too, so we are gonna expand. Alright, so Novaris is gonna try it once again. He's actually maxed out, so it makes sense to try, to at least try it now, because as I already mentioned, he doesn't have his farm leveled up, so he has only 80 food to work with, 6 food less comparing to his opponent, who has 3 skeleton archers more or 1 X-Masters more. It's not that much, but it is still something. And I'd say that Novaris does a decent amount of job here. But at the same time, he really doesn't wanna take those shots from the slingshot. But it seems that they're not gonna be killed. And the 2 chieftains having fun. One of them's not winning this fight anymore, which became obvious, so he is going for the workers instead. Not being microed perfectly. At the same time, Novaris rallied a couple of his units to the middle of the map. And it is also interesting that the red player, Krach, sent out a couple of skeletons towards the future chests. He really has a lot of skeletons to work with, thanks to those necromancers, who actually really became the great units after the balance patch. From my perspective, I tried a bit of necromancers and they're currently really great at debuffing the beefy targets such as the Eater hero. So it is really hard to take down Eater, as you guys probably know. Same as the Paladin too, but even harder. But if you have a necromancers under your belt, it really debuffs the armor significantly. So if you have like 3 necromancers, it is really way much faster. Oh, by the way, Novartis has the Alchemist open. So the guy probably just played a lot of games and he acquired a lot of dark chests too, not just light chests. So even though he might not be leveling up many units or buildings especially, but he still have enough content. He was receiving enough cards to get the Alchemist. Currently I believe we really can open the Alchemist and the Bombardier quite early. Along with my Players Award, I received the normal players award like anyone else who participated in testing. I opened Alchemist and the Recruit 1 and the Bombardier in the Novice 3, so in my opinion that is very early, considering that I didn't pay the money. But I actually have the Golden Battle Pass, as I already mentioned some day before. I really recommend you, if you consider donating to the game just some amount of money, I really recommend to consider the Golden Battle Pass currently. At least if you play a few games almost every day, if you have time to play a couple of games every day. So it seems that Novartis is gonna place the quicker second base, which makes a lot of sense to me, because it is obviously hard to take down the opponent's defense on the map like this. And why I say in the map like this, because the difference I see between the maps for a long time, since we didn't even open the game to the public. This is one of the elder maps, and here we have this high ground very close to the actual base, and this high ground too. So from any side, it's really hard to actually go down, go up straight and fight, because the enemy will always be in the advantageous position and can also benefit from the racial buildings auras. So it is really hard to assault, and when it's really hard to assault, you don't really want to rely on the assaulting too strongly. And the other way you can try to realize sometimes use the fact that you are probably in advantage, you want to take the quicker second base. So you will be up on the gold income. In the meantime, here starts the fight, and it seems that the Krach didn't really notice the enemy's army on time, so the blue player actually engages to his army that were moving by the move command, and that is always a disaster. But it seems that the circle of power really works greatly. Actually, both players used it, right? So it seems that they both used the circle of power. The blue player first and the red player following on. And in the meantime, with 1 unit, Novartis captured the rock elemental. That is heading towards the enemy base now, but probably won't be able to really deal a lot of damage, because the elemental isn't the greatest unit when there isn't any support for it. But at the same time, it is quite problematic after the naturals change to take down the elemental with a sheer reinforcement. You really want to have something when it starts. But Krach rather had something when it started. He had a couple of X-Masters, also the Chieftain Grok, and even though Navarre is trying to reinforce too and doing the great job, actually accompanying the Elemental, I bet it that Krach is gonna eventually able to defend. Is gonna be able to. One more circle of power for the blue player now. We consider it once again. Actually, today when I'm recording this, we talked about it again, that we really need to make differences in the scrolls to see if it's allied or the enemies. Because sometimes it is really hard to understand, especially in the team games. I'm not sure if we can make it soon, but it seems that eventually we're gonna sort it off somehow. Maybe we're gonna add some shader or some circle for the scrolls, like rockfall, we can show the zone and make it green, slightly green and slightly red. And for the scrolls that are already circles, like the Circle of Power or a Ring of Fire, we're probably gonna stroke it with green or red stroking, red line. So it starts to be obvious that the game needs this. So we're gonna find a decision. Alright, so what we see here is that Novartis is taken up to the Orc second tier. So probably he's gonna add catapults, which is obviously the other decision for assaulting. This is not really the decision for assaulting, especially if you just mine with one worker. By the way, when you guys at the second base, what I strongly recommend is to consider how many resources you have. So if you are on like 10k wood, then take the 2 workers from the wood and set it to the second gold mine. And if you are slightly higher on gold than on wood, then take 2 workers from the gold if you have 4, or 1 worker if you have 3, but usually you would have 4 on the main golden mine, and send it to the other one. So this way both of your gold mines will end around the same time, and that is precisely what you aim for. Why is that? Because all the time you will have the double speed. Of course, you can mine the both of them with the 4 workers too, but that will mean that you will either lack wood mining, because you won't have too many workers cutting wood at that moment, or you will be having too many food for the workers, so your armor supply will be lower. So that is why you really need to balance in War Legends how many workers you want to have when, and you really need to be flexible in this and really consider which resource you need right now and which resource is a problem right now. So this time it is not the greatest fight for the blue player, but he decided to go for the slingshot, and probably we can call that a mistake from Krach that he didn't repair it. But everything is good what ends good, what ends well. I'm not sure if such a word exists in English, but it is funny that the skeleton wars was raised up and started to recapture the mana well immediately. So Novartis in the end killed the elemental, but Krach decided to use that, and he has such a weird army, to be honest. So he is full of the Axemasters, with the Chieftain Grok, a couple of Necromancers, and just the Skeleton Warriors. And what's for Novartis, he actually started to add more Varg Riders once again. He also gets his heroes back. Probably he needs to use the higher acceleration on the Altar of Heroes now, because he's maxed out on mana anyway, so he can at least use it. Yep, and one more mana tower will be useful too, but can he even build that? Probably this is, yep, this is the mana tower. So he will be having the 150, which will let him to use the Ring of Fire scroll, if we assume that he has one, I'm not sure. But probably he has one, but we didn't see it in the game yet. And at the same time, Krach is not so self-assured to go and try to attack the enemy, because he was defending the last few minutes. I'm not sure where is Elemental gonna spawn this time, because we don't see the marker, but probably here as we see the red player going towards this spot. Another red player is gonna take the chest and the elemental. Novaris does something that again makes sense to me, but I would probably like to see one Warg Rider to go on the other chest, and one leaving here, and all the other units go back now, because they are slower and they don't really... Oh, it is interesting that Elemental takes this path, actually. But anyway, Krach decided to steal the mana well, but he didn't manage it. Should have left the Skeleton Warrior behind, which is quite obvious, but he probably just uses the Select All Army button. It is fine though, he could have just patrolled the Skeleton Warrior, and it would not be selected with a Select All. You can actually configure it in the settings, by default. If you use patrol, it's not selected. But you can open the settings and see that we added the new settings for that. The only problem that actually there are no text lines probably for those settings yet in English, so it might say you just dumb me. I'm not sure if we fixed it already. It was the case a couple of days ago, I reported that, so could have been already fixed by now. Actually, I can fix it myself. Why I haven't done that? But never you mind. We can see the green player having a hard time, because the Elemental, which went all the other way, actually made his way into the base and keeps doing the bad stuff to this base. And at the same time, the blue player didn't even figure out with the enemy's army. And the advice I actually had from the stronger players about the situations like this, so when they assault you with the elemental and the units, you really wanna take care about the units first. Because the elemental is very tanky, and if you will be starting from the elemental, the enemy's army will just kill you. So you really have to take care of the army first. Of course, the smart opponent will not be taking away the units that easily. He will try to kite, to drag you off your base, to buy more time for elemental, but you will need to make many little decisions, and it is not that easy. But the basic concept is that you don't really want to target the elemental when the army, the enemy's units are hitting you. Alright, so Novaris decided to try to attack once more. He actually chose the great path, but Krach eventually noticed that, apart from the chieftain, but now he goes forward too. It is an interesting question if you really want to fight those units under the circle, but probably, since Krach also have the catapults, probably it is a good fight. We can see how under those stuns chieftain goes down really quickly, so Novaris actually threw, like the esports people say, really threw this game here. And it is a perfect decision for Krach to actually try to go and finish out the game right here, right now. Because what can stand on his way? I don't see anything. What I would like to see though is sending the Skeleton Warrior either to the second base to check what's up, or maybe to the top mana well. There is the unit here too that could be sent to the mana well, but it is 15 seconds to the chests now, so it rather makes sense to leave the Skeleton Warrior on the chest. And not the worst tower's position actually. They really drag the chieftain deep in the base, so chieftain is not standing next to the X-Masters, so he won't buff them once you use the active ability. Remember that your active ability not only deals damage, but also there is the war cry. And sometimes the war cry is even more important, so sometimes you just want to cry to no units. Just cry to the thin air, but you will buff your units for a few seconds, so they will deal way more damage after that. Back in the days, people didn't even bother to cry into units, so they were always crying to the thin air. Dominator did back in the Axemasters, Chieftain Alchemist glory days. I can't tell that was the greatest time of War Legends, but it is just something interesting to know. And probably Krach should start stop reinforcing, I mean. And the other thing, I mean, that it is 64 minutes played in the game now. And as I always say, when it is 35, you are really short on gold. So you wanna start thinking about the second base when half an hour played. But it is 30 minutes, right? But when it's 35, you need to stop everything and start maintaining the second base. And also, you need to know if your enemy doing the same. Because if they don't do the same, probably you have time, probably you can try something tactical instead. But if they do have their second base, you really wanna see if you can take it down, or if you can't, you have to take the second base yourself. Because otherwise you will obviously lose the game very soon, because running out of resources. Currently both players are sitting with a great bank of gold. That means that the red player actually trades better, because he didn't mine the second base yet, but he only has 700 less. So this is probably where the units level showcase. I'm not sure how you guys, probably your eye is somewhat more crisp, but I can't tell that in some engagements I can clearly see how red units are stronger comparing to the blue units. But when I look to the resources tab, then I believe we are safe to say that we can see that because of the difference. Because the blue player is mining the second base for the 15 minutes now, and he only has 2k more. And 1 minute gives you 1000 of gold, approximately. So now the red players though has a hard time with the elemental, because he finally was pulled back. And it is actually an interesting idea, because you probably don't want to really engage your enemy's base when there will be an elemental soon, because it is always hard to break the base, to break the defenses, and you will probably, even though it will be starting good, you will probably be pushed away eventually. And when it will happen, there is always a possibility that the elemental will only be popping up by that time, and you will lose it. So the enemy will take it. So you can only start fighting the base if you are 100% sure that in the background you will take an elemental while the fight still goes on. Still is going on. So that is sometimes hard to calculate, but that is something you have to do if you wanna play like optimized things, to play things that make sense. Of course, some players don't really bother with stuff like that, so they don't, we can tell that they don't really think, they just do things how they feel it. And of course, it is the video game, so everyone is free to play the video game the way they like it, and the way they enjoy it. But if you want to win more often, you probably want to figure out stuff, right? And realize how to do it better. But it is not necessary. Alright, so a couple more skeleton warriors coming up. And obviously Krach has enough to build a second citadel. Game slows down a bit. Somehow Novaris went quite short on wood. Probably he shall replace the sawmill. Remember that even if the sawmill used to be close to the trees, then the trees is being cut down. And those trees in the edge of the map are not reachable, because there is the edge. So it is visible, but it is not reachable. The walkable map won't let the units there. So now it's quite a distance that the workers have to make. So you really want to build additional sawmills in the game state like this. And the sawmills are now limited. I'm not sure if everyone noticed, but one day we limited the sawmills, so it is similar like farms. So you have one sawmill on the first tier and the 2 sawmills on the second tier, so up to 4 sawmills in the very end. But here we can see only the 3rd main buildings available for the players, because they are not in the Captain League yet, so they might only build the 3 sawmills. But that means that you can destroy the previous one, demolish it, if you need one more. The reason for us to make it was to prevent griefing, because some players used to grief in the team games and wall their allies in with the sawmills. And since we don't have friendly fire, that means that the allies couldn't destroy those sawmills, so they were just walled in their base, they couldn't move out. Or sometimes they would be walled in the gold mine, but now the workers can go through the buildings, obviously, but that's still annoying. So now that in the beginning of the game only 1 sawmill is available, and at the end of the game only 4 sawmills is available, probably nobody will be able to really wall in somebody easily. You also don't want to go the team games with random people. Of course, the team mode is made for you to be able, together with your friends, or at least some players, some team game partners that you always play together with. But if you go and team up with some random, just queuing into it alone, then you can obviously end up with a grief, the griefing player, the griefer player in your team. But I still know that some players prefer to play the team games, even if they go alone. Of course, as the game devs, we can't fight things like that. We can only try to prevent the bad things, the bad stuff, and to stimulate the good stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have commands in the game, but probably now that I say that, I think that probably we have to add it. So if you recommend your allies, it can probably benefit the player somehow. We'll see. Probably we're gonna discuss it someday. And in the meantime, the next elemental appears in the top part of the map. Interestingly, the buff of the mana wells currently belongs to the blue player. And he also will take the mid chest with the worker. Workers now are not very important anymore, because the gold is running out. There is no more gold. But I don't really like this. The red player wastes too many HP of this elemental. He really should have assaulted way earlier, capturing the mana well with one skeleton, not all the army. He will probably still win the fight, because he simply have more units here. Actually, there are 2 catapults, and we can't count those off too early, because nobody can assault them, can engage on them easily because of the towers. The Sim City here is really being put great out of the blue player. I really wanna see one worker to capture the mana well, but probably Krach is just rather not really the beginner player, but still not too experienced, so it's just really too many multitasking for him. So probably he just does what he can. So we can't blame him for not doing many things at the same time, because it is genuinely the hardest part of the RTS game, especially on a mobile phone. And in the meantime, the blue catapults do the great job. I'm a huge fan of this new effect of the catapults hit, by the way. I think our artist did a great job with that. It really feels like the powerful boost, powerful hit. Can't come up with the correct word for that, but I guess we can call it a puff, a powerful puff. The smoke, the heat, the stun, also the sound, of course. We don't mention the sound design too often, because the sound design is such a weird thing, because if it is good, you actually don't even notice. So if you don't notice what's about the sound, probably the sound is designed great. But when the sound is designed poorly, then you will immediately notice it. When something is out of place, something sounds wrong. Okay, so the catapult starts fighting. Krach micros his chieftain towards the enemy's catapult. Navares decided to pull the catapults to the actual units. That saves them for a bit. Catapult tried to take down the slingshot. It didn't work, so the catapult was destroyed in the end. The chieftain is gonna take care of the AX Masters. He has 1 X Masters to his name too, but probably the red player is not gonna make it. He can take down 1 aeronaut, then probably 1 X Master. Anyway, the reinforcements come. And now the Necromancer from the high ground can summon a couple of skeleton warriors. Novares tries to take down the Necromancer. I believe he's gonna end up doing it, but the X-Master will die too. Alright, so many units queued in the buildings. not the greatest way to actually get new units, but when the gold is running out, you don't really want to add even more production buildings. And interestingly enough, the red player is currently 1% ahead in the activity tab. And the reason for that, I believe, was this engagement. Because he destroyed a lot of buildings in the enemy's base, and then he destroyed a lot of units too. And if you guys don't know how activity is counted, it considers how many heroes you killed and how many heroes the enemy killed. And the similar to the units and the similar to the buildings. And if some number is very low, like I killed one hero and you didn't kill any heroes because I didn't summon, it won't be counted. So it has the threshold, and from that threshold it starts to count. But here we can see many heroes dying, many units and many buildings, and everything is counted, and also the time of controlling the spots of interest, the activity points such as mana wells. And the blue player mostly control the mana wells, so he wins in this metric. But the others, I believe that Krach is actually ahead, because he's defending and he mostly kills more units, and when he's attacking he also kills more buildings. And that is why they're nearly equal, but the red player was still ahead when it was 10 minutes left, because 1 hour is the maximum duration of the game, right? You probably know that, but if you didn't, then I tell it. So now the guy suddenly went for base trade scenario, and it seems to me that the red army is stronger, but at the same, because of the chieftain mostly, but at the same time the blue defense is also stronger. So it is not that easier to tell who's on top, but it seems the red player already destroyed the blue defenses. And there are still a lot of X-Masters and even the chieftain at the full HP. And here we only have the 4 units against the 2 towers who attack everyone. But the X-Masters are not that vulnerable to the magic damage at all. So it seems that only 1 X-Masters will die. Probably should have microed it. No others should, but he wasn't quick enough. But what he was quick enough with was capturing the last elemental. And the elemental will be huge in this scenario, because you don't literally have anything to deal with the elemental. You can tell the aeronaut, because that guy doesn't hit air. That guy doesn't hit units at all, but the other problem is that the elemental has strong resistance against the piercing damage, and obviously aeronaut dealing the piercing damage. So it will take you like forever to kill the elemental with the aeronaut, because as I already told you, aeronaut is understat, so his stats are underrated for his cost. Because of the mobility and his being the aviation, not everyone can attack it, stuff like that. But that won't be helpful against the elemental, who barely losing any HP against that guy. So Novartis reinforcing with everything he had towards the enemy's base, and it seems that he's about to kill all the base, and that means that he won't be behind in activity, because he still controls both of the mana wells, so he still get more seconds of control, and that will get him more percentage for in that metric. We're gonna see in 5 seconds how the activity changed. And alright, now the blue player has the upper hand. 53 against the 47. And one more chest, both players... Oh, I mean, only red player still mining. And he is food capped, because he lost all the farms, so he won't be able to build any more units. And the elemental obviously knows that the buildings are here, but now the red player takes all of his army and will try to finally take down all these units. There are 5 X-Masters to the blue player and 4 to the red player, but he also has aeronauts, and most importantly he has the chieftain and also the necromancers, who are really helpful again against the beefy targets, so they reduces the armor. And in the meantime, blue player just tries to take down the buildings, to focus down the buildings, to try to win by the elimination, because this is the last building and there are no workers on the map. So if Novartis would kill this building, he would win the game straight without any activity. But he was still winning in activity, but he also lost a lot of units here. So I'm not sure who is on top right now. And he has a few buildings, and he has the farm hidden here, and it seems that the X-Masters finds it. So Krach sends all of his units towards here. Both of the players saw that Novartis had the upper hand in activity, and that means that Krach has to find the buildings and destroy those. And that would bring him the victory. So he's gonna take down this farm. I'm not sure he's aware of this base. Novartis also adds the under obelisk, because it is the only building, racial building, available on the first tier to be able to build the Tower of Dark Magic later, I believe, but he only has one worker, so he decided to hide this one worker. One goon goes down. The goons are about to try to finish off the citadel. That won't happen probably, because there is a worker to repair, and this worker is about to hide one more building, and the aeronaut does not see it. It's 2 minutes to go, and finally Krach found out about this base. So he's gonna destroy the buildings. He didn't see the building in the top left corner, I believe, and now what he's even doing, that is somewhat a misclick. One more worker is killed. He's not aware of that building, of that last building, and in the meantime worker comes to hit the last building of the red player. 1 minute and a half to go still. The red player is not repairing, just retreating with the worker to build another building, apparently. I'm not sure what building and where exactly, but he needs to hard. Okay, he builds it right here. The barracks goes down. 1 minute still to play, and one last barracks right here. Still 53 against 47, upper hand for the blue player. The blue player hides one more worker, but has kinda enough resources, but not unlimited for the Novartis, especially. So still, Krach really traded way better in this game, because there is still almost 5k in the bank and 5k in the gold mine. So he traded 10k better, and he's still not winning. He has units and the enemy does not, but he doesn't do the greatest job in searching for the buildings. He has a lot of units. He should have splitted them all around the map to quickly find and probably take down the buildings, but he wasn't able to make it. And 1 hour, and that means that Novartis wins this game by activity, 53 against 47. In the replay the game won't end for me, but for the players it ended indeed at that 1 hour mark. And Novartis, by the skill and experience in such scenarios, was able to come on top, even though he was underrated and underpowered in his units and buildings and everything, and he traded 10k wars, but still came out on top, because War Legends is a game where skill matters, luckily enough. Probably this is because this is why I still win some games. But it will take me to the Captain League eventually, and we'll see how will it go against the skilled player like this guy. Alright, so let me know if you at least realized or know how the activity system works now. And what's for me, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.